Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 24 quarterback rankings for Week 4. You ready?
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, before we get started, let me remind you, these are not my rankings. These are the rankings that I input into my stat machine, and then I'll talk about those rankings, and we'll discuss, show you some stats, and maybe my video talking about this will help you with your lineups, or at least keep the energy up as you set your fantasy football lineup this week. All right, let's just hop right into it. All right. At number 1, you got Kyler Murray versus the Washington Commanders. This is where, if you got Kyler Murray, you're probably starting him. But, if you're a 14-team league, he's outside of that. You could have started somebody else. And I think this is what these rankings kind of take notice. At number 2, Josh Allen at the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, you're going to rock with Josh Allen again. He was the top quarterback in Week 3. But just on the season, again, I'm always thinking about 12, 14, 16-team season. In Week 2, he was outside of that. You could have benched him in Week 2. But these other 2 weeks, he was the number 1 quarterback. So if you got Josh Allen, you're rocking him. Number 3, Lamar Jackson versus the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a good game. I don't expect this to be a shootout. I do expect this to be a good game. It's just who's going to do better. Lamar Jackson could have those games, right? Again, he could have those games. He's been in the top 10. Josh Allen, he's not going to be the number 1 quarterback in Week 4. So, again, it's going to be an interesting matchup. Number 4, Jaden Daniels at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Jaden Daniels had a great Week 3. The question is, are you going to put him in your starting lineup? Because I know you have another quarterback ahead of him. I think you have to give it a shot depending on who you got above him. And with those 39 rushing yards and a rushing TD, I think that's why you may want to start him. He has weapons. We've seen that. Zach Ertz, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Terry McLaurin. So I like that, all because he can put some rushing yards on. At number 5, Jalen Hurts at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jalen Hurts, he was a top quarterback selected this year. I just want to look at these rushing touchdowns. Has he got into the end zone on his legs? He did it in Week 2, and he didn't do it. So he got 1 rushing touchdown in the first 3 weeks. If he doesn't get those yardage, doesn't get it, he might be susceptible to be benched. Number 6, C.J. Stroud versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. C.J. Stroud lit it up last year. This week, he's stinking it up. And I think that's not helping. He was my number 1 quarterback, and he is out. He's out. And I think he's going to step it up. Is it going to be Week 4, or is it going to be later in the season? At number 7, Dak Prescott at the New York Giants. There's another quarterback that's kind of stinking it up. Yeah, he had a good Week 3. But overall, he's just I think he's doing all these yardage with this, with the attempts. And I think that's what's making him get those yardage. 32 attempts, 39 attempts, 51 attempts. So, yeah, it looks like it, but he's not doing it efficiently. At number 8, Joe Burrow at the Carolina Panthers. Now, I stayed away from Cincinnati teams. He had a great Week 3. I just there's just some questions lingering if they can perform. At number 9, Patrick Mahomes at the Los Angeles Chargers. Here, I do want to look at this. If you got Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be starting him. So it's not a big deal. But what's going on with Travis Kelce? I see him out there. Is he blocking? Are they just trying to avoid it and trying to hustle somebody? Something's happening with Kelce. Number 10, Anthony Richardson versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, here's a pick that I don't even understand why it's there. Because if you look at overall, week-to-week rankings, only the first week, and this is kind of I don't see him returning. And if he returns, I still think he'll be out of the top 15, 16. So if you're not in the top 12 to 16, you might as well bench him. I think he's going to stink it up again. Justin Fields at the Indianapolis Colts. Here's one that's kind of riding in the middle right there. He was ranked 12, so I would go with him again. Number 12, you got Gino Smith at the Detroit Lions. Gino Smith is having a good season. He's one passing TD, and another passing TD. So I think that's, he's either, you expect more. Gino Smith, I think they got him too high. I think he's going to be outside that top 16 ranking, and that's all I care about. So he's barely hanging on there, and I think he's going to be outside of that. So I would bench Gino Smith this week. Number 13, Baker Mayfield versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Baker's going to have a good game. And he's another one that, if you're not in that top 16 or less, you got to consider benching him and find somebody who is. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here. At number 14, Jared Goff versus the Seattle Seahawks. Goff, again, he's outside. He's not having a good year so far. You expected something higher, especially with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just not efficient. I need to add the scores here. That's the only other thing that I want to add here is the scores, so I can look at this when I compare who's playing well. At number 15, you got Derek Carr at the Atlanta Falcons. I think Derek Carr is a starter. He might not have a good week 3, but he's a starter. So if you look at the first 2 weeks, everybody's entitled to be stink it up. I think week 3 was his stink up, and I think that's where you expect him to be right there at 10, 8, 9, 10. So I would be starting Derek Carr. At number 16, Sam Darnold at the Green Bay Packers. Here's one that you didn't expect coming, right? Sam Darnold, you thought was going to stink. And here he is, 4 TD passes. What's he look like on the season so far? Well, he's been right there. Even if in a 12-team league, he's a starter regardless. So if you have Sam Darnold, if you don't have one of those other guys, I would start Sam Darnold just based upon what he's been doing this season. At number 17, you got Brock Purdy. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not even going to look at his stats. If you got Brock Purdy, you're going to start him, but he's playing against the New England Patriots. At 18, Jordan Love versus the Minnesota Vikings. This is where they're putting him back in the lineup, and you might wonder if there's a quarterback problem right now. So they might have a little quarterback controversy right there. So if Jordan Love comes back, doesn't play well, expect Malik Willis to get some playing time. At number 19, Caleb Williams versus the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think Caleb Williams is a starter yet. It was nice to see him get 2 passing TDs. I would hold off on starting him again for week 3. He just has to be consistent. And even though he's in per se, if you from a 16-team down league, but look, he's been outside. So until he can do this 2 weeks in a row, I think you got to leave him off. Number 20, you got Daniel Jones versus the Dallas Cowboys. If we look at what he's going on, Daniel Jones, 236 passing yards, 2 passing TDs. What did he do in week 2? Again, he was the 6th ranked. So I expect him to have another solid performance in week 4. I think that was 2 weeks in a row. So I think we can kind of depend on him a little bit. So I would go with Daniel Jones unless you have some other stellar running back, quarterback. At number 21, Aaron Rodgers versus the Denver Broncos. Aaron Rodgers, are you starting him? Are you sitting? Can you do this? I think that team's going to pick up. They're going to have a better season. I think those first 2 weeks, we're really getting some jitters out, even for Aaron Rodgers. At number 22, you got Deshaun Watson at the Las Vegas Raiders. Watson was the 16th ranked quarterback. It's just one of those things you got to consider. His passing yards is picking up. Maybe he's settling down. His points are picking up. So if you got Deshaun Watson, it's a gamble. It's a gamble for Watson. At 23, Kirk Cousins versus the New Orleans Saints. Now, the only reason why I consider maybe not starting Kirk Cousins in week 4 is because he had a not too good week 3, and he's going against that New Orleans Saints defense. So I would consider sitting Cousins this week, but he's talented. They got a good team going on over there in Atlanta. And at 24, Andy Dalton versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is one where I say they had a blow. They played extremely well in week 3. Is this an anomaly? Maybe. But if you're gambling, and depending on what your quarterback situation, you got somebody sitting 10, 11, 12, I would consider starting Andy Dalton in week 4. All right, that's going to do it for our top 24 quarterback rankings for week 4. Again, this is where it kind of gets tricky because you got 2 quarterbacks. You maybe switch them out depending on who the matchups are. So good luck. I had Tua, and Tua's injured, so it made my pick a little easier. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck in week 4.